Hi, welcome to episode 182 of your favorite daily podcast, A Couple of Things, a podcast about things. Today, I'm going to talk about no fault investigations in the airline industry and how it has helped me think about how I review myself. So, a couple of months ago, I stumbled upon this essay on no fault investigations in the airline industry. And the idea is basically that when there are accidents and things occur, the investigation that goes into it when they probe and do all those things is not to say who caused this or who should be punished for this happening or whose fault was this. The investigation is to say why did this happen and how can we prevent it from ever happening again. I'll link to the essay in the show notes, description, whatever. But the story that the person told in sharing this, in trying to explain this, is there was an airline control person in the air control person in the tower who cleared a plane to land while there was a plane already on the runway that was supposed to take off, and lots of people died, um unfortunately, but she wasn't even aware that that had happened. But when the investigation happened, our instinctive reaction is that, oh, she did a bad job, she has to be punished, people died, and so on and so forth. But what they did instead was to investigate what had happened. Like, why did what happened happen? Why did what happened happen? You get what I mean? So they were looking at what are the faults in the system. Like, so what had happened was she was about to clear the plane to take off, the plane that was already on the runway or tarmac, whatever, to take off. But then she got interrupted by something or someone else who was looking for some information, and then she forgot about that plane that was on the runway to take off. She thought she had already cleared it, and the plane also had all the lights off. And so when the plane that was asking for clearance to land got to the control tower, she cleared the plane to land because she had forgotten about that other one because of all the interruptions that had happened in between those two events. And she couldn't see the runway or the tarmac or whatever because of lights, and things were blocking her view, so she couldn't see that there was a plane on the ground. The ground radar was not working that day. She was distracted by somebody asking for information about another plane that was supposed to be with somebody else, but the person didn't have it. There were so many things that went wrong, right, that were outside of her control. And so when they did the investigation and they found all of these things, because they were doing a no blame investigation, it's like, we're not saying anybody's at fault here, we just want to know what happened so we can prevent it from happening. They then fixed all of these problems so that these kinds of crashes will not happen again. And apparently this is how the airline industry and airports, this is how it always works. When something goes wrong, they're not like trying to blame people or whatever, they're trying to say what caused this and how can we fix it. So it's a matter of why instead of who. Because, and the thinking goes that if you stop at who, you don't actually get to the why, and then you can't prevent that thing from happening. It could have been anybody else. Like, it didn't have to be that woman that was there. It could have been any other person who was there that day, and the same event would have happened if, given that all the other things, that all the 6 reasons that they listed that caused that thing to happen were there, right? So what does this now mean for me? Well, why am I in it? Hi, thanks for listening so far. Just to pop in to say, please send me questions. I'm running out of things to talk about, so send me questions or suggestions. The link to do that is in the description box of the episode. Also, subscribe. Thanks. Okay, let's get back into the episode. So, and this is a thing I've recently been thinking about, not like something I've spent like a long time thinking about. So I'm literally spitballing here. How I'm thinking about it for myself is when I think about where things didn't go wrong, where things didn't go right, or things didn't go the way that I wanted them to, or I put in effort to do something and it didn't turn out right, or I'm trying to achieve a goal, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it may be. I'm thinking about how do I approach assessing those events and reviewing those things, like especially now this is the time where everybody's doing like media review or whatever. How do I approach all of those things without, the word that comes to mind is castigating, without castigating myself, without necessarily blaming myself that is my fault that this thing happened and I'm a bad person or whatever. Like, how do I switch from that approach, or not take in that approach, and instead take a no blame, quote unquote, no blame investigation approach into understanding what has happened, into understanding the failure that I've experienced, or the things not going the way that I wanted them to, whether in my personal relationships, in work, in my whatever it may be, right? And as I'm talking about this now, I'm thinking about that whole thing about systems and habits over whatever other thing you can think about. So it's like, what are the systems that I'm building around myself to make sure that I am able to do the things that I want to do? So I talked about a couple of episodes back when I was talking about like my personal media review, not the podcast media review, about how like I stopped, like I've not been really doing well with my physical fitness in the past 6 to 8 weeks because I stopped my going to gym classes. And like, I could do the whole be disciplined, blah blah blah, whatever, do your class, exercise in the house or whatever. But I realized that at this point, the thing that actually gets me out of the house, the thing that gets me to actually move my body, is to go to a class that I enjoy. So the best thing to do is not to blame myself, to be like, oh, you're so lazy, you're so whatever, you don't want to go out, but to be like, okay, I've realized that one of the things that really gets me going is going to a class in a gym and doing a fun class that I enjoy and that stretches me in some way. So what can I do to make that a system around myself where I just have that, it's always there, and then I have to go and things like that. So I think that's where my mind is at right now. Like, and is a thing that's for you. Like, listen to this now. What do you think is a way to, or what thing have you been blaming yourself about, like, for the outcome, where you could do a no blame assessment of it to say, okay, if you remove me from this equation, what are the other things that contributed to this thing not being the way that I wanted it to be, or having the outcome that I wanted, and what can I do so that those things can be fixed or can be better, so that I can then have the outcome I want. And again, you may not, even though you do everything right and all the systems and everything right, you may not get the outcome you want, because not everything is in your control. And I talked about it in a previous episode, which I will also link to in the show notes. And yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you for listening. I will put the link to the essay in the show notes. You should definitely read it. And yeah, that's it for today. Bye. So yeah, that was it for today's episode. Thank you for listening. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful, or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.